Welcome everyone to the Horology Forum 2020's Means to the End of the World, a panel about the environment, because as one of the world's leading pollutants, the luxury industry, the one thing we can't afford is to stop talking about it. And I welcome you. Let me go in counterclockwise position, direction. Stephen Forsey of Grubel Forsey, Aline Sylla-Walbaum of Christie's, and Christophe Nicaise of Seddiqi Holding, and Edouard Meylan of H. Moser and C. Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to have you all, and especially the combination of entities, getting involved in this topic, whether you like it or not. Whether you like it or not. Okay, so let me begin with question number one. How has the existence of your livelihood polluted the environment?
Well, I'm contributing to the pollution every morning, taking my car to go to work. That's one.
I think we all, to a certain extent, obviously, as we work for global companies and luxury is a global industry, we travel quite a lot. So, of course, that has an immediate impact on carbon emissions. We do use computers quite a lot, and including right now, obviously on Teams. So, as we know, servers are one of the major source of pollution. I think we, basically, all that we do, I mean, on a professional basis or on a personal basis is somewhat draining the resources of the planet, especially when we think that we were 2 billion people in 1915 and we are now 7 billion heading to 9 in about 10, 15 years from now.
And what about you, Edouard? What do you think about how you're...
Well, I think we all, I mean, whatever the industry you work in, as you said, as soon as you use a computer, you drive, you fly, you're polluting. But I think you said one of the luxury industries is an industry polluting a lot. At the same time, I feel we are creating products that you can recycle, that are not obsolete after 2 years, that is something that will remain for years and generations. A lot of it is handmade, is hand finished, and things that people will keep for a long time. So I think to some extent we are working in an industry where we create products that, in comparison with other industries as such mentioned before, is not that polluting. And I think there's also, because of the awareness globally that is emerging years over years, I think we're looking right now at the RJC certifications, those kind of things. There's definitely an awareness, and people are trying to do better. Here internally, we try to travel less. We try to use technology for years, and not just since the confinement, more to reduce our impact. We try to have zero carbon impact for our production. Of course, it's not zero in terms of production, but we contribute by buying carbon credits in compensation. So yes, we all pollute, and we need to try to do less. But I think we're not the worst industry.
And I think also, Dom, if I'm correct, that often when the statement is made about luxury, it's actually often about fashion, because we know fashion is by definition a little bit more fast fashion than our type of industry, especially if we focus on horology and production of watches. So it's quite different in terms of, I think about 7,000 liters of water you need to bleach and prepare a jean for it to be exactly, stonewashed and so forth and so on. That is more on the fashion side of things rather than on the production of those items, as Edouard put it. I mean, for me, luxury is, as I see it, so like high-end horology, high-end jewelry, wine and spirits, or for that matter, handbags and accessories as well, which is more or less my remit at Christie. I feel they are in essence sustainable in the sense that they're made to be solid, they're made to stand a very long time, and with a reference to an advertisement campaign that everybody on this conference will recognize, you merely own a high-end watch, you don't even own it, you pass it on to the next generation. So I think there is a statement to that. I mean, surely for me, working on the secondary market, that's what I see.
No, definitely. And you make a very good point. I will have to relent that you're right. Yes, fashion and the differentiation, yes, is important to make fashion and versus jewelry and timepieces. Sorry, continue, because I intervened. Did you have more to say on that?
Oh, I mean, to me, it's really the important element. If you think of it, for example, similarly, often in the, let's say, affordable luxury down kind of segment, like in the fast fashion, what happens when you have excess production? So you have already consumed the planet resources to produce this. When you have excess, you tend to destroy them because you can't afford to offer it at too low of a price. And this is destroyed by, like being burnt and so forth and so on. So, like you have used resources to produce a $10 t-shirt, but then you also use or, like kind of free up carbon dioxide in the planet by destroying the unsold stuff. I mean, as we know, for the luxury industry, it doesn't work like this. Even when there is some form of excess of production, although all our companies are focused in trying to not have excess production, then the items can be melted and the raw material. So yes, you produce energy while you do this, but then you can reuse the raw material, or you organize sales to friends and family, or you do, like you have a variety of options in which you are not going to destroy these objects. So that also contributes to I think, from my perspective, to luxury being a bit more sustainable than other adornment industries, if you see what I mean.
Okay.
And it's not tested against any animal, I believe.
But Aline, if you remember, it was actually a luxury brand that was pointed out or finger pointed about maybe 2-3 years ago in England because they burn unsold inventory. And it was not a fast-moving consumer goods or fast fashion. It was actually a well-known luxury brand. So I would agree with you, but I think everyone can do better and can do more. I think. Although we try to differentiate between fast fashion and luxury, I think we can still do a lot more. I mean, I think everyone on this panel would probably agree. Well, I think in a way we're forced by the consumer. I think the consumer is requesting now that we do more. I think there's. I was mentioning the responsible jewelry council. I think this is something that we see is becoming more and more important. There's been a lot of greenwashing in the last years and decades, people using that more as a marketing tool, but people are not fool anymore, and they realize that there's a lot of bullshit. And I think now people are forced to, or brands are forced to think a little bit differently and really go all the way and really think about supply chain being sustainable. Who do I work with? Are they certified? Do I know the provenance of the things I'm using? I think it's important. And I see it also here at Moser with our team, our employees. For them, it's important as well. They don't want to work in Switzerland in luxury. I mean, we have the chance to be in this industry, in this country, and they want more. And they force also me, my family, my shareholders, the management team to think beyond just, we're producing expensive watches and try to sell them. No, it's how do we produce them to have this, this corporate social responsibility, both in terms of people, but also environment. And I think it's also the new generation, those millennials are pushing us every day, and all initiatives we can put in place make them even more excited and connect even more to the brand. So I think it's the consumer and it's the new generation that are forcing us to go in that direction.
Yeah, I think there is a general level of consciousness which has evolved in the last years that it's been taking time, but It's the different people in different members of the panel have said, it's something which there is luxury in luxury. The high-end watchmaking is labeled luxury, but it's not luxury in the same way as a pair of branded jeans or sneakers, training shoes, or this kind of consumable. What we do between us in the fine watchmaking area, which is very labor intensive, so it's a lot of energy, a lot of human resource and expertise and skill and culture behind that. This is something which is a long term. So yes, there is an initial impact to actually making a fine mechanical watch, but that watch is going to last for decades or generations, perhaps. So, the impact over the whole lifespan of what you're actually making is much, much more evened out over time, because that initial use of resource can last for so many years.
Okay. Second question, because the first question, it revolved around polluting the environment, but now Stephen and all, since you've now officially joined us, what are you actively doing to stop the damage, not just pollution-wise, as in whatever damage is being caused, but whether it's by you or your actions, your life, whatever it is, what are you actively doing to stop it? And not just damage, but also in terms of the human rights, ethical diamonds, the ethics of it, child labor. So not just for the environment, but also humanity and society's sake. What are you actually doing to help that situation or address those things apart from talking about it?
So I get first up, do I, Dominique? Thank you. So yeah, well, as I touched on just now, what we do is something which has a kind of a sustainable philosophy. I began my career in restoring antique watches, so it's something where you're maintaining and preserving a culture and a heritage. But with Robert and myself for Global Forsey, when we built our atelier, our workshops in La Chaux-de-Fonds, which were completed in 2009, we were at 1,000 meters above sea level, and we opted for a construction of a building with a green roof, so a grass roof, which helps to reduce overheating and is a fantastic, is a great insulation technique for the roof. And the outer structure is what's called a double skin facade. And so 11 years ago when it was completed, it was the first modern building with that kind of technology in it. And it was vastly more expensive. It was a prototype, but for Robert and myself and our vision for Global Forsey, it's a long-term view. So we, we are conscious of that. And then on the side of, as Edouard touched on, supply chains, there are there's that sustainability and that traceability of raw materials, of precious metals, of precious stones, which are there with the World Jewellery Council and their certifications, and even in the raw materials for the movements, the technical materials we use there. In Europe, we have a program called REACH with the ECHA, and this is a commission set up to monitor and study the impact of using certain materials, raw materials, so different alloys which we would have used in the past in watchmaking are no longer considered to be safe, and you have to be able to document and explain how your team, in your company are actually working with those materials, and that all the safety precautions are met. So, it's something which we're conscious about, and and we're always looking to push further.
And you guys will. Oh, and bravo, Stephen.
Thanks. I'm still doing it blind. I still can't see you guys, but
Yeah.
but I kind of in the zone now. I can imagine you when somebody talks. I can see them, so it's okay.
That's probably not one on which I can elaborate a lot because, of course, we are not producing any items. We are, as we know, organizing to a certain extent the secondary market. So at Christie's, our sustainability policy is towards reducing, the paper we use, basically in terms of more or less cutting all of the printed catalogs. We and to move on to digital, we trying to obviously curb down travels to make sure that our local footprint and of our offices are as low as we possibly can. And promoting actions also from our employees when they are committed to sustainability themselves. So we also obviously take sustainability in the wide sense of the term, as you've mentioned, Dominique. So it's also about being an inclusive company and obviously wherever we are trying to take good care of our clients, providers, especially right now where this is more needed than ever. But in terms of production, of course, I wouldn't be relevant to elaborate. But from where I speak, what I can see is a lot of the luxury brands, and I would say almost all of them, we've seen so much more, let's say, commitment from them also to just do the right thing, so that when the objects arrive to us, they already come with their certificates, with great traceability of the items and the raw material in it. And I must say that they've made our task so much easier because there is a high level of awareness and commitment. Because as discussed, I think the youngest generation, so Generation Y and Z, they are definitely more socially and environmentally conscious than ever. This is something that is really front and center for them, and when they don't align with the values of a brand, or I would say almost worse, when the brand has sort of showcased certain values or pretend to have certain values but then act differently, then the backlash is really, really strong, especially now via social media.
Definitely. Does Christie's have, since Christie's does have really old pieces as well that might have been assembled, during like decades ago, do you guys have problems with selling those pieces that don't have the ethical diamonds or gold certification and so on? Are people asking, or they don't care because it's an old antique piece? Like, does that ever come up?
Yeah, no, people do ask. And, to take a famous example, ivory used to be something that, of course, was used quite a lot since the medieval ages as a precious, almost inalterable white material. So it was really obviously precious, especially because it was also coming mostly from mythical animals, like from elephants or from seals. And therefore, it was always treated as a very special item. So now it turns out that sometimes we have to refuse a code that we want to sell just because a few, like little inlays of ivory are on it. And it's not easy sometimes to explain to a client who bought it at Christie's 40 years ago that now Christie's cannot take it for sale because the social, let's say, acceptance of what happens with ivory and what is the impact of that on the population of elephants is now a global issue. And yes, the client said, yeah, but like the ivory for this elephant, like comes from an elephant that died like 300 years ago. So you're not going to have him, like come back because we're not going to sell this amazing piece of 18th century furniture. And therefore that's an element in an education. But yes, definitely that happens on a regular basis because the standard has changed.
So Christie's does not accept pieces with ivory in them. For example, they take those kinds of steps. They won't accept. That's very interesting. I didn't know that.
We have the same. We've had the same in the past, like I would say about 10, 15 years ago. It was still popular to sell rhino horns because like they've been, obviously hunted and collected for many, many years. And there was a belief in China that that rhino horns grind in powder would be, well, let's say the ancestor of Viagra. And therefore, a lot of those rhino horns that were meant to be decorative trophies, they were bought back by Asian clients who are in this belief. But at some point, we know what happens to the rhino population in the world, has reduced definitely significantly. And we made the stance, also it was not made compulsory or any laws that we would stop selling them, despite the fact that, yes, of course, the revenue that we could potentially look at making through selling those very popular items was significant. But it was a stance that we felt, but until people do believe that rhino horn grinding in powder has some form of effect or power or anything, then and on the other end of the chain, there will be somebody killing a rhino for it.
Yes. Wow. So that is what Christie's is doing. What about you, Christophe? What about Seddiqi Holding, or you personally, whichever?
Well, I think we put human at the center of the organization. So maybe on the environment side of things, we could probably do better. But as far as taking care of our employees, being inclusive, I think we have over 60 nationality working within the company. So we are extremely inclusive in terms of people background and where they are from. During the COVID-19, and sorry to talk about it, but the Seddiqi family privately supported the research against COVID and did a major donation for the research. So yeah, as far as taking care of our employees, creating a nice environment to work with, we're quite active. Again, I repeat, maybe on the environmental side of things, I will go back to what Aline was saying. We try to limit as much as possible paper usage. So trying to be as digital as possible. Then whatever paper we are wasting, we are giving it away for recycling. So we try to limit our impact as much as possible. Unfortunately, we live in a region that is super energy hungry, especially during the summer month. We have to use a lot of electricity because we have to run everything under AC. And for some reason, solar panels are not yet everywhere. It could be obvious in a region where you have the sun almost 365 days a year, that everywhere you would see a solar panel on the roof. So this is still to come. I think there is a technical issue because a lot of sand is in the air, and this sand comes down and reduce the efficiency of the solar panel. And so far, I think they're still working on preventing this and keep the efficiency of the solar panel. So that's one of the reasons why, if I'm not wrong, I'm not an expert, but that's one reason why the adoption of solar panel electricity has not been making huge inroad yet. At the same time, the government is pushing a lot in the region to have electricity plant powered by solar panel. So it's coming. It's coming. But for us, Seddiqi, it's mostly around people that we take the most important initiatives. We're also financing through the family technology for hospitals in the region that are lacking the latest technology equipment. So we are supporting also on that side. And it's in the culture to help others. It's very much in the Middle Eastern culture. So from our side, this is in a nutshell some of the initiative we're taking.
So more humanitarian as opposed to sustainability.
Yeah, very human-centered culture. I mean, the way we've been managing the COVID situation with our employee, has been remarkable. I don't want to brag here, but our main objective as soon as the lockdown started was to protect our employees and to protect their employment. So we haven't let go anyone, and we did everything we can to maintain the salaries at the same level as the pre-COVID situation. So we haven't cut any salary in the organization during the lockdown and up until now. So I think this is quite amazing in itself also. I don't know many retailers worldwide and in the region that have put the employees' health, financial health and health at the top of the agenda. Obviously, we were requested to make some huge efforts in terms of cost saving, but this cost saving initiative was not to increase the profit of the family. It was to ensure that all the employees will be paid fully, whatever is the situation. So I think this is quite remarkable in itself.
Well, I wouldn't know. So, lolling. Now your turn, Edouard.
Well, I think to me it goes back a little bit.
You guys can interrupt each other and ask each other. Well, not interrupt each other. I meant that you guys can ask each other and stuff. Like, yeah. Like Edouard, you can be like to Christophe, "Are you sure? Did that really happen?"
Well, yeah. I saw what Seddiqi did. Also, seeing from our perspective and hearing it from the people we know in the stores. I think that has also an impact on the motivation and how people in the stores see the family, the management at Seddiqi. I think there's a lot of respect there because they really see it. They see what happens to others and how they treat it. And I think this is remarkable, as Christophe said, and I think this is the philosophy you find in family businesses, maybe more than anywhere else, because there's there's this relation to every single employee that you chose to work in your organization, and you probably have this kind of respect more in such an organization than any other. I know more about family businesses than those other businesses, so it's difficult to judge, but I would suspect. From a Moser standpoint, to be honest, 2, 3, 4 years ago, for us, the main priority was to bring this brand back to life and to be, as a brand, sustainable, meaning that we can afford, developing, producing, and selling watches, and not continue to lose money as we did when my family took over. Once that was behind us, it became clear that for the people, the younger team that we had here that I mentioned before, this idea of sustainability, corporate social responsibility were extremely important. We started the process of certifying for RJC a little bit more over 2 or 3 years ago. That's a long process. We're actually being audited next week. So fingers crossed we'll be RJC certified by the end of next week, which is for us. It's a very important element internally, but I think also externally, we see more and more people are looking at this. I personally look at the entire supply chain and choose suppliers that are RJC certified as well. And there's more and more. I think more and more brands are certified. I think it's a good thing because it really looks at the entire supply chain. It looks also internally at the company. How do you treat your employees? And it's not just theoretical. It's really they come and check on a yearly basis, interview randomly people in the organization. They also ask you a lot of questions about how do you look at money laundering? We selling watches extremely expensive, and sometimes you don't really know where the money could come from, and that's something that is also a very important element that these questions. And I think for us, it was a very important element to look at. Supply chain, what kind of gold do we get? Is it ethical? The diamonds, the crocodile straps that we buy, where are they coming from? How are they being produced? By whom? Etc. That's very important to have really this traceability. And we're really, really super excited to be RJC because this reflects on a lot of things we've been doing, but now it's really like getting this certification is important. Next to that, we try to look at, as I said before, the carbon footprint, reduce traveler as much as possible. We trained already for years people as much as possible digital. I mean, we had sessions of, for example, with our partner in India, training 100 people at one time behind a computer. I mean, if you have to do that when you travel to India, that costs a lot of carbon, you know, a lot of carbon emissions. It might not be as efficient. And I think we did it during the lockdown with the Seddiqi staff, whereas in the past, my brother being in Dubai, he would go to the stores and he would do that. But we discovered it's very, very efficient. We look also at, in the past, there's a tradition in the watch industry when you have guests at the fairs or at events, you make big gifts to those people. We stopped giving gifts 2 years ago. Now what we do is every time we have guests, on behalf of the desk, we make a donation of 10 children books for a foundation called Room to Read. We actually have been focusing on that particular foundation because we develop strong links with them. We do events with them. We try to we develop watches for them to auction. I think Christie's even auctioned one of them. And all the funds go to build libraries, build schools, and also help girls to stay at school. I mean, there's too many girls that at a certain age, the family said you have to come and work or take care of the family. And Room to Read is really trying to help to keep little girls in schools. It costs $300, I think, per year to have one girl stay at school. So it's not a lot of money. And I think that's for us also something that is very important, not only because I have 3 daughters, but I think it's very important that I think we change the world through education and through having empowered women around the world. So that's part of the things we're trying to do. It's small compared to, I know there's a big corporation behind those foundations, like, you know, Credit Suisse, Microsoft, Facebook. But again, I think if everybody contributes at its scale, we will all together change the world. And I think also it helps get people inside our organization and also amongst our clients discover those ideas, have discussions with us about those themes. And it helps not just through the money, but also through the mindset, through the discussions, change a little bit, step by step. And that's, I think, the only way long-term to really have an impact.
Well said, and very admirable. We're the little girls out there. So have you ever believed, any of you at times, that your hopes are not aligned with reality? Hopes about in terms of a better environment, better, humanitarian circumstances and so or conditions. Did you ever think, does it ever occur to you that it's just not realistic if we want to, we can't have both?
Maybe I start I go the other way this time. I'm an optimistic, so I'm not gonna. I mean, I have with my wife. We had a few times a discussion where she said, what kind of world are we going to leave to our kids? I mean, we have 4 kids, and we always ask ourselves that. And I tell her, I mean, my perspective is we always adapt. We'll find a solution. There's going to be. I mean, we have so many brain resources in this world that we will find solution for that. I remember my mom telling me the same thing 35 years ago, 40 years ago, saying, I don't know what kind of world we're going to leave you, because at that time there were already problems. And I know it's accelerating. It's getting, I mean, we always wonder whether we have passed the point of no return. I personally believe that we have the chance to change. Of course, we cannot wait. We need to really start working hard on those things. But I think there's so much technology, ideas, and things that eventually we'll find solution for that. And maybe I'm completely disconnected from reality, but that's my honest point of view on the matter.
It's heartening to hear. Anyone else want to venture forth?
No, I think there is this optimism. The human adventure is all about adapting to new situations. We've seen that this year, and but of course, I think again, for Robert and myself, we started as 2 watchmakers working together 21 years ago, and the dream was to try and create a fine mechanical watch, to bring some new innovation and to share that. And so, through to be able to go on with this adventure and to find collectors who share in that passion and have accompanied us, the whole watch community, media, journalists, specialist journalists, they've all contributed to something positive. The mechanical watch, I think it brings a lot culturally. It's inspiring, it's mysterious, it's magical. And so for Robert and myself, well, also, the realization that training was being lost. There was watchmaking training was being slimmed down, even in Switzerland, led us to create Thymian Foundation in 2008. And so there, to be able to give back and to, this is something to see young people inspired to do something creative with the hands, to be active and to engage and take responsibility. This is something I think which is heartening. And if I think back 30 years ago, or more, when I went to watchmaking school, and one of the things that really struck me at that time was the teachers who were at retirement age, and they said, why are you doing this? Everything's been invented in watchmaking, and the electronic watches here is so much more precise. But it wasn't something that I was ready to accept, and I just felt convinced that where there were new ideas, then we could move forward. So I think this expectation that it's that. It's a state of mind, perhaps, to believe that we can make a difference. The individual can make a difference. Then, of course, we need to work together and organize that. And but by having a vision and being able to inspire, share that passion, and bring people on board with you, you can do great things. So I think all of us in our own ways are trying to contribute to that positive action.
Okay, that's fair. Aline and Christophe, if you don't have more to add, you can just say he said it, or what he said. Just point at Stephen and be like, what he said.
Exactly. We have two optimists here, and we don't want to ruin the atmosphere.
Yeah. What they said. Okay, well, let's go on to Christophe.
Yeah, no, I want to remain optimistic, like my colleagues. Luckily, we have two generations, like Aline was saying earlier, the Y and Z generation, kicking our butt to change. So it's a good motivation for all of us to embrace this change and make it happen. So I remain optimistic. I would be even more optimistic if leaders of the world would also lead by example and give the right direction. Unfortunately, it's not the case everywhere. I'm not going to name anybody here.
America and
well, come on, Christophe, name someone.
But you all know who I'm talking about. So this is the disappointing factor for me, is that as we say in our companies, we all try to lead by example, and it's a motto for all leaders. And unfortunately, on that particular issue, not all leaders are leading by example, and they go 2 steps back rather than going 2 steps forward. So that's my little caveat on the optimism, but hopefully things will change.
Spoken like a true Frenchman.
In which sense?
I think we can guess.
Diplomacy?
Wait, yes.
Diplomacy.
Is there any other way? Okay, so my next one. Would you? Oh no, sorry. Well, I'm just torn which one I want to ask you guys first. You know what? I'll ask this one first. Would you live the life of a monk if you knew it would make a difference to saving the environment? You have to be honest when you answered this. You can just say yes, no. You don't have to explain yourself.
Well, what kind of impact?
If you knew that it would save the environment, that if you did that, would you live that life the rest of your life?
Yes.
You're lucky it's hypothetical.
Well,
Edouard, give me the phone number of your wife. I'm not sure she's been involved in this choice.
well, she might be happy actually.
I mean, I think
actually, I can see all the husbands agreeing to this way of life.
After 4 months lockdown, I'll be a monk anytime.
That's what I was about to say, Edouard. I don't know if it's a yes to the question, but what we experienced in the past few months certainly taught us that we can live with less, definitely. And I'd be curious to know what was the impact of this lockdown on the actual carbon emission. I mean, we all know, obviously, it had a big impact. Were we less happy? I'm not sure. It certainly has its toll in terms of people feeling uncomfortable, people being worried, etc. But when we were in lockdown, I've discussed with a lot of friends, and the most often answer was, listen, we learned that we can live with doing less things and spending less money, etc., etc. So the monk life, maybe yes.
Depends where.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think the thing about that is, is in comparison to each person's life, what we're doing. If we could do more as a monk than we are doing now with what we respectively do, in terms of positive contribution, then yeah, of course. But I think it might be difficult for one of us being a monk to do more than we can try and do as we do in our day-to-day, week-to-week, yearly activities in terms of family and business and so on.
Yeah.
For me, Nick, the question you ask is, well, that's actually interesting. You took the example of the monk, because prior to, thinking in terms of, living in a very kind of poor and, like not consuming type of life, I think the main driver for being a monk is the faith. And it comes that because you want to dedicate all your time to this and you want to be closer to God, that the interpretation that was made was to say a monk has to, like let go of earthly properties, etc., in order to focus. I think that if you try to have the lifestyle of a monk without the faith, it's probably not going to turn up as a very positive experience for not only the individual, but also the community of monk living all together. I think the one thing we need to restore probably is, like, we know that a lot of people did use consumption and buying products and objects in a way to fulfill themselves of other things that they don't have. And like like buying or compulsive buying, etc., was also related to this, or who you are in society. And I think like the way you dress, etc., is so important, because you have social media and you're constantly being, have to showcase the best version of yourself. As I hate this sentence that is now kind of, like you need to make yourself the best version of yourself. And I think that's part of it. So if COVID-19 lockdowns, etc., have helped us to kind of go back to, but who am I and what makes me happy beyond trying to be the best version of myself, like professionally on my profile here, on my, like among the other moms at school and so forth and so on, then I think that has done something somewhat long-term to help with this sustainability issue, I think.
Okay, noted. So, what is the biggest victory for the luxury world in terms of environmental or humanitarian relief? What single event or law, whatever, has been the biggest victory for the environment in the luxury world, including high fashion, by the way? which Aline like clarified.
I was going to say, I think perhaps outlawing, the use of ivory would be something which has certainly,
Was ivory used a lot in watchmaking and jewelry?
Well, not necessarily, but in across the whole area of, in furniture, it was used in marquetry for ornaments and all sorts of decorative items, and and unfortunately, elephants are still being killed for ivory, so there's still an illegal trade. But my feeling would be that that's something which has certainly been very important to there, and to use it perhaps with that example to draw attention to a wider area, rhino and other animals, and the danger of losing these species becoming extinct, is something it helps significantly to raise awareness. But ivory, with the profile for piano keys, it's these are things which have been super important, I think.
I totally echo what Stephen has just said. I mean, as we know, and it may be sad, but most often when you want to really enforce something, you have to go through law or tax. That's the only one thing that people have to abide by, and that they will kind of respect to a certain extent. And so I think that the CITES convention, protecting all endangered species from, conch, and seashells up to ivory and a lot of other endangered species, has probably been the main element in trying to obviously make it compulsory, make it really important for everyone that we have to comply with this. To a certain extent, also, I think fostering the creativity, which is at the heart of the luxury industry, because for me, a luxury item is not something that is demand-driven. This is something that is created by some, an artist, an artisan who creates a product. And when it's there, people feel like it's just so exquisite, it's just so special. It was never seen before exactly this way, and that's why I respect this, and I want to own it, and I want to support this brand. And that, to that a certain extent, CITES was probably perceived as, oh my God, we're not going to be able to sell mink fur anymore, etc. But then it fostered the creativity, as all constraints normally do, and we go to other materials. We produce, Chanel use ceramics to, produce jewelry, and we have, I'm sure, thousands of examples where, we can now use the fish nets. Prada has, I think, produced a bag and several items out of, fish nets that are killing, too many fish in the sea, but then they are being collected and repurposed into a luxury item. So I think those constraints, they not only, I think, did they have a real significant impact on the protection of the wildlife, but they also, to a certain extent, forced the industry to look at things differently and be creative again.
Excellent points.
I to be honest, as much as I love the elephants, I think the usage or the traceability of gold and diamonds, blood diamonds, etc., had in the recent years had a huge impact, because I think for too many years the sourcing of gold and diamond has financed terrorism, has provoked, children labor and stuff like that. And I think for me the biggest impact was definitely really raising the awareness and people really wanting to know now. There's not a client buying a diamond set watch without asking the certificates today. I think everybody really wants to know where is it coming from, and I think we probably not yet, but working on eradicating blood diamonds. And I think with the certification on ethical gold, we're probably on the same path. And again, it's in zones where there's war, where there's children working. It's also terrible on the environment. Extracting gold is terrible. You use chemical materials like mercury and etc. that really destroys the environment. So I think tackling the issue of traceability and new technologies like blockchain can also help us a lot there. And I think that will have a huge impact also on anything from geopolitical, from environment to geopolitical issues.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have one last question. So you guys have made it through alive so far. Dun, dun, dun. You made it.
You have kept the best for the end, right?
Wow.
I'm sorry, I have to go. Oh.
Yeah.
The best. It's a matter of perspective. It's a very subjective question. Let's see what you think. What is your favorite brand, and how do they harm the environment? Boom.
Well, our favorite brands are Moser and Forsey, of course.
Yes. we
Zing.
I can say that, because we are very lucky to be working with them both, and we do definitely appreciate the heart and the personality that they put into their watches. I will never forget the watch made out of Swiss cheese. So like when my team told me about this, I was like, oh, thank you for getting me, it's just like, no, they're like, but Aline, we're serious. And I'm like, that is amazing. With the whole campaign, Make Switzerland Great Again, which...
Yes.
Do you still have the hat?
Absolutely excellent. I do have the hat, and we wear it on a regular basis in the office. And obviously, Stephen, I mean, it's just incredible what you've been able to do. I mean, we know that creating a brand, not only maintaining a brand, especially in the current context, but creating a brand, out of two individuals like this is just, like how many of them in the watchmaking industry have been able to do that through, like 2008, which was quite of a financial crisis, and through now. I mean, honestly, kudos to you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And how? Well, you conveniently sidestepped to the second part of my question, Aline, of how do they harm the environment? So not necessarily Grubel and H. Moser, but a brand you use. So fine, it doesn't have to be a luxury industry brand. It could be Nike. It could be, something else. And when I say how does it harm the environment, that also refers to humanitarian issues as well. So everyone think about that. A brand that you use, that you knowingly buy.
Yeah.
And how do they?
I think I go back to what Aline said in the beginning. Today we're saying we're trying to do a lot of things more digital and traveling less, but at the same time a huge impact that there is on the environment are all those big companies using servers placed in some locations. They're generating a lot of, using a lot of energy, generating heat, and this is a huge problem that we need to resolve, because I think we're creating more and more data. We're creating applications that require more data, and those applications create more data, and we take pictures that are better quality and more HD and HD, and where are we going to store it in the beginning, in the future? I think. This is something that we need to think about, because we are using those things every day, not realizing that somewhere around the world we're creating a disaster that eventually will impact all of us. And I think for me, this is a problem, because I use Apple, I use social media, Facebook, I have my computer now, I'm taking pictures of my watches, but also of my family, etc. And because I'm stuck in my small thing here, I completely forget. And thanks for reminding us, Dominique, through this panel, that this has a huge impact. And I think, as optimistic as I am, this is for me something that we definitely need to find a solution for. And in a way, I hope there are people out there who will find a solution. because unfortunately also as a brand today, I'm too dependent on those things. And when I need to take the decision of saying, you know, should we do everything like sending letters to consumers and walk to the office every day and minimize really those aspects, well, I take the decision not to, because it's easy. Of course, we try to send letters, etc., but in a way, we're too focused on on ourselves and creating our wealth that maybe we forget a little bit those aspects. And I hope we can change that.
Maybe we should all move to electric cars, because at least there we all know that, I mean, ICE combustion engine cars are one of the biggest polluters in the world. And here we don't have to find a new solution. The new solution is already there, which is EV. So I think that could have.
There are a lot of theories around it, right?
Yeah.
Producing a car until you I think the break-even point in terms of energy might be around 40,000 kilometers at the moment. Still, I mean, those giga factories out there in California are also generating a lot of problems. So I don't think we are there yet. I think it's a solution, and we need to invest in those technology. I agree with you. I mean, my father is telling me this. He loves, those racing cars, etc. I'm somebody who says we need to invest in electric cars, even if they're not perfect today. But I think, again, we cannot say this is the solution. I think that we need to continue looking for the solution.
Because you've still, with an electric car, you've still got to get that electricity, and so we're creating a need for more electricity, and it's IT, and when in Switzerland for quite a lot of years they had an objective to arrive at the sort of what do they call it, the 2 kilowatt household of use per day. But it's impossible. The more and more we are pushed to get connected technology in our homes, and when you at night, it's rarely dark because you've got all these things on standby around the house, which are all using a little bit of electricity. Every email we send uses electricity. It's generating, as Edouard said, storage and data, and that's all got to be transmitted and stocked somewhere, and then we want to call it back, and so these are things which are kind of an enemy, and the technology giants, it's great, but it's kind of a two-edged sword, I think, on that. Isn't it?
Probably we need more transparency in understanding the impact on everything we do. I mean, it's probably a nightmare to create, but if all of us knew that every time we do this or that, this is the impact, not just now but also in the future, we might think differently. The problem that we have today is you sending an email, you turning on the light, or you forgetting to turn off your network at night. You don't see what it means. And adding as you said, Stephen, adding every single household in Switzerland, but everywhere in the world, and having those big signs in New York, Times Square, every day at night when there's nobody left out there. Why? I mean, I think the next generation is kind of starting to get that without having something telling them what it means. But we should go further, really trying to understand the impact.
And we need to try and work on solutions of how to reduce that. I mean, it's kind of off topic, but where I live, just 10 kilometers from La Chaux-de-Fonds, in the Swiss Jura region of Neuchâtel here, we don't have running water. We don't have city water, so we just run on rainwater with underground tank, and then just a filtering system. So so it's a sort of semi off the grid approach, which is also, I think, something certainly for us. That's 23 years. My family, we're living like that, and you appreciate water differently. And this is a super important resource, which is life-giving to us all. And so this year has been very unusual. We actually ran out of water because for one part the children came home from university, so there was more use of water, and And then we had a long period. We had 7 or 8 weeks with no rain. And so you're really watching that and, you know, checking occasionally your reserve. But it's, you know, this is also a very important, like Edward said, you know, it's a super important resource. We turn on a tap and expect there to be a clean, purified water there all the time. But we mustn't underestimate the importance and the fragility of these natural resources.
You must not, ever. Well, now that we have 1 minute left, you all cheated, the men all cheated and refused to name a brand. Aline is the only one who complied with that.
Well, I said Apple, I said Facebook.
Did you? I didn't hear you.
No, but those were the one that I think you were meant to mention, the one that you thought was great.
No, how they harmed the environment.
Oh,
I'll end this panel and let you all go with just asking what's the one thing that you cannot live without, even though you know it harms the environment? Go. You can just say like just what it is.
Chocolate.
Okay. Oh, chocolate for Stephen. iPhone for Edouard.
Lipstick.
Lipstick for Aline and Christophe.
Well, my car.
Your car. This
Electric?
is telling about all of you.
No.
Chocolate for Stephen, iPhone for Edouard, lipstick for Aline, and your car. Christophe.
It's not a bad cross section.
Very nice.
Good panel.
Perfect.
Amazing. Thank you, Dominique, for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dominique.
Thank you, Dominique. Thank you, everyone.
To Dubai Watch Week Horology Forum.
You can just call me devil's advocate. Thank you, guys.